Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Political Vigilante. My name is Graham Elwood. There's the blue light of truth shining up across the world. You came here because you want some truth, or maybe you stumbled across this, or I don't know. Maybe you're like, oh, this godless hippie keeps running his yap. I'm going to write some comments below. I'm going to show him. No, you won't. I found this interesting article in sciencemag.org, the link is below, that scientists say we're on the cusp of a carbon dioxide recycling revolution. This is interesting, and it's something I talk about whenever I discuss green energy. Green energy is a technology, and as we advance and develop more technology, we will find more energy, more ways to create green energy, or in this case, recycle carbon dioxide, this is amazing. If this can happen, this is a revolution. That's why they say it's a recycling revolution, because we would be pulling all of the CO2 out of the air and using it for energy. I'll go into the specifics of it from the article. So, yeah, it's just fascinating, and this is an interesting site, sciencemag.org. It's all that crazy, godless science, so watch out. And I want to bring this up too. There were many mathematicians and scientists from centuries ago that absolutely believed that God and science intersected. It's become weird. It's only been in the last like 50, 60 years here, mainly in America, where the religious right has taken it, and then like agnostics or whatever have separated it, that if you believe in God, you can't, or religion, you can't believe in science, and if you believe in science, you must be an atheist. It's a ridiculous thing, in my opinion. So here's some statistics from the article, and then how they're going to kind of go into it. So every year, the billions of metric tons of carbon dioxide, CO2, are released into the atmosphere, add to the growing threat of climate change. But what if they could recycle it? By adding electricity, water, and a variety of catalysts, scientists can reduce CO2 into short molecules such as carbon monoxide and methane, which they can then combine to form more complex hydrocarbon fuels like butane. Now, researchers think we could be on the cusp of a CO2 recycling revolution, which would capture CO2 from power plants and maybe even directly from the atmosphere. That would be amazing. And convert it into these fuels at scale. And they reported that March 29th in Joule, I don't know, Joule. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that word. Science talked with one of the study's authors, materials scientist and graduate Phil DeLuna at the University of Toronto in Canada, about how CO2 recycling works and what the future holds for these technologies. This interview has been edited for clarity. So then they go into the interview with this person, and I'll read some excerpts of it. But it's one of those things, actually, in many of the interviews I've done with Mitchel, who's a Patreon supporter. His whole philosophy is like, how can we take something that is wasteful or a problem and turn it into a solution and reuse it? And that's the thing. And if you look to Mother Nature has no garbage. Mother Nature reuses everything. So if we can figure that out, I mean, obviously, if we all drove vegetable oil cars and stuff like that, that would be great, which is still something we should do. And here's the other thing I want to say about green energy is the idea that it's just find this one thing and that'll fix it. I think it's a multi-pronged approach, and it might be geographic. So in this region, it might need more solar, obviously. If it's in a colder, windier region, it might need more wind or whatever. And this recycling CO2, if we could start this, in the near future, while we're like on a parallel track getting rid of and getting off of oil and fossil fuels, we could be doing many things. And of course, clean the planet, give people jobs, save the human race, little things like that. So this first question, why CO2 recycling? That seems like a dumb question for a journalist to ask. Why come up with this thing that could be great? So here's what the Canadian scientist says. The developed world has been emitting CO2 almost frivolously for a long time, and there's a lot that can be done. But I could imagine a day when the entire energy mix is fueled by renewable energy sources, and then all of the hydrocarbon products, consumable plastics, the fuels that you need for long-term energy storage and heating your home in the winter, all of that could be derived from CO2 conversion. And then when that happens, CO2 becomes a way to store renewable energy in chemical form over long periods of time in a stable way. And that's the kind of the goal, to have CO2 be a carrier of energy rather than just being a waste or an emission. We get some big brains in there. See what happens when you get actual scientists that aren't paid by the oil companies to deny climate change? They come up with good ideas. What? Innovation in America? No, let's just go for profit, greed, and stupidity. Where did the idea come from? The idea stems from artificial photosynthesis, whereas nature has been able to take light, CO2, water, and create food. We're looking ways of engineering devices to take CO2, renewable energy, and water and reduce that into more value-added products. And how do they convert it? It's like reverse fuel cell. There's a cathode and an anode. At the anode, water is split into protons and oxygen gas, and at the cathode, CO2 is electrochemically reduced to other value-added chemicals such as carbon monoxide, methane, ethylene. So you are feeding CO2 protons and electrons from the water and electricity, and you are electrochemically reducing them. Wow, that's amazing. They're saying that it's maybe 5 to 10 years away, which this is the kind of stuff that we should be putting research behind and money behind, not into pipelines. But this is the kind of thing that the fossil fuel industry is obviously going to fight, although they probably should want to support this because this, yeah. Anyway, they're going to fight the fossil fuel companies are going to fight anything that is a threat, because that's what the greedy and the scared do. Everything's a threat, and then they react in fear, and fear is usually most people like that, with closed-minded who are afraid, react with aggression or violence in some way, and lawsuits and shooting water at protesters that want drinkable, shooting water cannons and rubber bullets at water protesters because they don't want contaminated water is a fear-based reaction from the oil companies and the corporate state of America. So the final thing here that they respond to, that the last question is, what do you think will decide which technology ultimately wins out? At the end of the day, it's always going to be the market which technology can get enough industrial sponsorship and acceptance from industry. That's the one that's going to win out. That's the one that'll be implemented at scale, and that's the one that'll be competitive. These large energy companies are looking for ways to diversify their portfolios and technology, and this idea fits perfectly into what they're skilled at, and it really hedges the bets against becoming irrelevant. That's a great point. And that's the thing. I will summate that with just why I say vote with your dollars. That's when you support things in the marketplace, you support green technology, even just in a daily purchase or in how you work your lives or your home, your apartment complex, your condo complex, your office, your whatever. You start implementing those things and they see that they're financially viable. That's when people get behind them, and that's when the Green New Deal could actually take place and reverse climate change and give everybody jobs and all this other stuff. And so there's a lot of ways to do that. Wanting to end war is a way to do that, because stopping the gluttonous misuse of funds to perpetuate the war machine leaves no room to put any money into any other technology or anything. So that's why, being against war is a great way to be an environmentalist. and supporting technology like this and constantly looking for new technology and supporting this type of research. So I appreciate you guys watching the show and supporting the show. And if you just join Patreon, you get charged the first of the month. And then when your card clears, then you'll get your reward. And those who've been supporting me for a long time, thank you so much. Patreon link is below if you're new to the channel. We'll talk to you soon.